Hello everyone, welcome to New Gen Politics. Here's an article from CNN titled, Biden says Trump supported an insurrection, but court should decide if that disqualifies him from presidency. President Joe Biden said Wednesday his predecessor Donald Trump, quote, certainly supported an insurrection, but that it was up to the courts whether that disqualifies him from running for president. The White House and Biden campaign had previously declined to weigh in on the Colorado Supreme Court ruling saying that Trump is disqualified from the 2024 primary ballot in that state because he engaged in insurrection. Quote, I think it's self-evident that Trump is an insurrectionist, Biden told reporters after stepping from Air Force One in Milwaukee. Quote, whether the 14th Amendment applies, I'll let the courts make that decision. But he certainly supported an insurrection. There's no question about it. None. Zero. He seems to be doubling down on everything. The unprecedented 4-3 ruling handed down by the court Tuesday night would be on hold until January 4th. Trump will have the opportunity to appeal the decision to the U.S. Supreme Court, which could settle the question for the rest of the country. Election officials in Colorado have asked for the issue to be settled by January 5th, which is the statutory deadline to set the list of candidates for the GOP primary scheduled for March 5th. So what Biden's saying here is actually really concerning, because you have the current president calling the former president an insurrectionist and saying that there's no doubt that he tried to overthrow the government. Now, that is a very scary line of logic. It's a very scary set of statements that Biden says here, because he's openly saying that the former administration tried to unlawfully seize power or hold power, and that given the chance, Trump's going to overthrow the government. And what does that line of logic lead to? Well, we can do whatever it takes to stop an insurrectionist. And that's what the Supreme Court in Colorado tried to do, is say, it doesn't matter if he hasn't been charged with insurrection. It doesn't matter if he hasn't been convicted of insurrection. All that matters is we think he's a bad guy. We think he did this. And so even without a conviction, they're saying he doesn't deserve to run for president. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous abuse of power. And Biden's supporting that. You want to talk about threat to democracy? Removing somebody from the ballot and saying that they're not allowed to run for president, that is the least democratic thing you can do. And we know that both sides will do pretty much whatever it takes to gain power. But they still tried to pretend like they would follow the rules and the laws. But now it's just totally gone out the window. They see Trump as such a threat, saying he's as bad as Hitler or worse, which means that they can do whatever it takes to protect democracy. And how do we protect democracy? By not allowing Trump to run for office and let the people choose their president somehow protects democracy. But this is not CNN calling for it, saying that Trump's an insurrectionist. This is not MSNBC calling Trump an insurrectionist. This is the president of the United States, the current president. Just forget about Biden and Trump. If you looked at this on paper in any other country and you said the current president of X country just called the former president insurrectionist and is saying he must be arrested, he must be charged, he must never be allowed to get near power again, any of his associates must never be allowed to take power. That's a very scary concept, no matter what side you're on. Because suddenly the mechanism of power, the trust in a democratic system has broken down. You can't trust the candidates you're running for are not going to seize power. And you can't trust the people, apparently, to make a wise, well-informed decision about who they want in power. They've said that Trump's MAGA supporters are insurrectionists as well, deplorables and all that. So why wouldn't they say, well, we can take Trump off the ballot, but if that doesn't work, they might want to go to the next step and say that Trump supporters are insurrectionists and they shouldn't be allowed to vote. How long until we go from trying to ban political candidates to saying entire groups of people do not have the ability to vote because they're a threat to democracy? It is just an insane slippery slope that we're seeing in real time, and it's escalating more and more and more. Remember when Biden came in and he promised unity when he was elected? I can't think of a less unifying thing than arresting your political opponent and calling their supporters insurrectionists. And how do these situations turn out? Not good. When you can't even trust the other side of the political aisle to act fairly, even in a legal sense, there's nothing you can do. Really, democracy is breaking down. And it's not breaking down because Trump's a big bad meanie. It's breaking down because Biden and the Democratic side is trying to seize power and determine who is allowed to run and who isn't, who's allowed to vote and who isn't. That is the death of democracy, is when you take away people's ability to vote. It's gaslighting at its finest, telling you we need to take away your right to vote to protect democracy. That is what's happening at its core. So Trump's going to appeal this. It's not actually going to go through. There's almost no way that Trump will actually remain off the ballot. But it sets a scary precedent that without a conviction, they decided that Trump should be off the ballot. But judging by the trajectory of this country, events like this are going to continue to happen and escalate more and more. Total removal of presidential candidates, trying to get them arrested or impeached for anything just because they're on the other political side of the aisle. That's where the country is at. Arrest your political opponents. That is the definition of a banana republic. Monopolizing power and saying the other side is so evil they can't be allowed to be free. And the people themselves are such a threat to themselves that they're not allowed to vote for whoever they want to. So we'll see how this develops, but it's just a very scary line of logic. It's scary that the current president has said that the former president is an insurrectionist. This is not a bash or a jab at Trump. This is a definitive statement by Biden, calling the former president, an entire half of the country, insurrectionists. So we'll have to see how the story develops, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on where we're headed as a country and what we can do to prevent the total breakdown of our democratic system. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.